incredibly grateful that you're in here with us. I'm delighted to be sitting here with three female entrepreneurs. They're also rule breakers. And they all have started businesses that are essentially about women's empowerment. So we're going to get started right away. And Emily, you launched Glossier, which is a direct-to-consumer beauty company 4 years ago. You only need to really walk into Sephora and see the literal swirl of different things on offer to know that it's a pretty crowded space. But nevertheless, you still managed to raise a lot of money, over 85 million according to Forbes, which is awesome. I'm curious, how did you pitch this as something different, and why did the VCs bite?
So beauty is not a kind of winner-takes-all game. I mean, many of you all sitting here know that you probably don't have all of one brand in your medicine cabinet. But what's interesting is that the industry, the beauty industry, which is an enormous global market, it's 450 billion today, going to 750 billion in 6 years, they still believe that you will buy all one brand. And the competitive difference with Glossier is that we not only believe you won't, but also encourage you through our physical products and our forthcoming digital products to write your own story and to be your own expert. But convincing these venture capitalists was very hard. I mean, you're dealing with, roomfuls of men. 6% of venture capitalists are female from last year's stats. And they really go off of pattern recognition. So they believe that the biggest businesses are going to be built around businesses like the ones they built, which are usually, technology companies with a certain demographic of primarily male engineers. So when a beauty company like ours hit their desk, a response that we often got was, "Oh, I'm not sure how to evaluate this. I'm going to ask my wife." To which I often thought, well, if I were in your shoes and you pitched me a fintech company, I wouldn't say, oh, I'm going to ask my husband. That's pretty much your job. But fortunately, a female investor, Kirsten Green from Forerunner, did write the first check into the company, and we've grown, many 100% since then.
So if you're a woman, VC is a bit of a nightmare for you. You have a success story, but it's really not easy. And if any of you were at the dinner last night, you probably heard Melinda Gates say that around 2% of VC funding goes to women-led startups. Dee, we were chatting, and you said that you're about to embark on some fundraising for WE, which is a women's empowerment and networking organization, which you launched. And I'm curious how you're going to approach it.
With much trepidation. I actually I dipped a toe in this fundraising pool a few years ago, and the experience was, was horrifying, to be honest. And so, you talked about the amount of money that women raise, but if we can dig deeper into those numbers, it's, women of color are raising less than 0.02% of fund. It's basically zero. And so there are only 30 black women or 34 black women who've raised over $1 million. The average raise for black women is $42,000. So it's, it's ridiculous. And so, these are the odds that I'm going into or up against. The good news is that to combat this problem, there are a lot of new funds that are sort of focused on supporting women and supporting women of color. The women like Arlen Hamilton and Aileen Lee, who's here from Cowboy Ventures, Female Founders Fund. Obviously, Melinda Gates is putting money into this issue. So, I'm feeling a little bit more optimistic about the options that are available to me, but it's the wild, wild west out there.
Be brave. Sophia, your new business, the aptly named GirlBoss, which you also are, seeks to empower women by giving them tools to get ahead. The women empowerment space seems to be really on trend, at least on this stage. And I'm curious, do you agree? And do you think it's here to stay? And also, what do naysayers say about it? And how do you deflect them?
Okay.
It's a lot of questions.
Yeah, I mean, saying like feminism is a trend, or that like women's groups are a trend. It's like, I hope it's a trend, and I hope it's a trend that never dies. Like, I don't know, red lipstick, it goes away for a week, and then it's like always here. It's been funny. I've also raised money and went to a few of the venture capitalists who have invested in some of the other women's groups that might be kind of the obvious players who've raised money in the last few years. And there's like 3 of us, right? There's like not very many, and these guys, mostly guys, have invested in so many other companies. And
I'm thinking maybe like The Wing, maybe Bumble.
Maybe. And they've invested in like all of these other companies that many of them speak to men, and that there's like 3 of us speaking to women. They told me that it was too competitive and that they couldn't really talk to us because GirlBoss was also speaking to women, which is like, it's just like the most insulting thing that you can invest in one company for women. So it's a trend. It's not enough of a trend. I hope someday it doesn't have to be called a trend, but I think it probably will have to be for a long time.
I want to talk a little bit about what your workplaces are like and what your workplace practices are like. Emily, I heard that you hired a ballerina who never went to college to run your company's social media channels. And I heard that you hired an assistant off the subway, ride the subway, people, you never know what could happen, who went on to develop 2 of your company's best-selling products. I'm really curious to hear kind of what you look for in a hire.
That's a good question. It's probably more about what we don't look for. We believe at Glossier that there is no hierarchy in ideas. Certainly, especially at a company at the scale that we're at, we're 180 employees globally. You certainly need seasoned experts, especially for things that are serious, supply chain chemistry, all the things that you are not going to do when you did not study those things. But in general, it's been an amazing journey at Glossier because it's been this real art and science of investing in primarily women who really want to prove themselves. And I've rarely been disappointed in hiring those people. One of the interesting things about our company is that while our business is beauty, our revenue comes from the sale of our products, our company is tech. I mean, we're, almost a third tech. Our tech team in general, including engineering, is 50% female. That's in an environment in the Valley where Google's engineering team is 20% female. And we believe that by building a giant business with women and underrepresented minorities, we're going to build better product. We actually have a competitive advantage. This isn't about hitting quota. This is about building better product. I mean, if you look at some of the AI devices like Siri, it was built to recognize commands like I'm considering suicide, or I have some trauma, and yet if you ask, hey, how do I deal with being raped? They literally say, I don't know what that is. So when you think about the people who are behind the products you're building, for us, it's really important that we win big and that we build products for people around the world, and that we will win by having a very different looking technology company.
I'm curious, both of you, how do your sort of company goals translate into the people you hire?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I want to hire other women. I want to hire underrepresented women and minorities. And so, I'm building a business that is about bringing women together, helping them create great networks, about creating sort of intersectional networks. And so I just want my hires and the people around me to reflect that.
Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, what we're doing at GirlBoss is really about women being able to bring not just what they do to the table, but who they are. And I think we have one dude at GirlBoss. His name is Calvin. He's a product designer, and he's built this really beautiful thing that we're launching later this year. So it's really important to us that our team doesn't just show up and work and grind, which we're doing. We're a startup, and it's really hard to have a company called GirlBoss that has limited resources, that is building something exponential to the size of the team, and also give people, for health and wellness to also be part of a startup culture with 25 people, because that's something we talk a lot about. So we look at how we can integrate our lives, both internally as a team of girl bosses, and we're constantly creating content and guinea pigging ourselves for the sake of our audience to find better ways to do that, and not think about the world as I'm in my Instagram self on weekends and I'm my LinkedIn self on weekdays, and not this concept of balance that's very dated, where these things live in silos, but how we can integrate those things.
Since we're being so candid, I'm going to mention the F word, everybody. That word is failure. Sophia, not to put you on the spot again, but here we are.
And child.
Your first business, Nasty Gal, filed for Chapter 11 while your life was essentially being made into a Netflix movie, and a couple of other pretty traumatizing things were happening at the same time. Can you share one or two lessons you took from that really very public failure which inform your business today?
Well, one, thicker skin. So I don't know if that's a lesson, but I encourage everybody to go through Chapter 11 because everything becomes so much easier after the fact, and you know there are no sacred cows, and you'll kill anything, right?
Yes. And by the way,
to
we
build
should
enterprise
invent a
value.
beauty product for that. Thicker skin, just
Oh yeah, I think CoverGirl maybe. Yeah, so within a 6-month period, I was on the cover of Forbes magazine. A month later, my husband of a year left me. I think like 5 months later, Nasty Gal filed the day before Trump became president, and GirlBoss, which was a book I wrote 4 years prior that is now a hashtag that's been used 13 million times on Instagram, became even more important. And this Netflix series is coming, and I knew I had to build something for this time that we're in, that these girls had already built, the community they had already built was there. And in some ways, the failure, I guess you could call it, really kind of like subsidized what GirlBoss is about. And for all of us, we're failing in small ways every day, and sometimes big ways, and most of us have the luxury of no one really seeing it. Mm-hmm. To do it on such a grand scale, it happens. As one of the few women who have raised venture capital and are in the spotlight in the way that I am, there's fewer of us, so we're going to be pointed at in ways that maybe that's kind of like a notch on the belt for, I don't know, a lot of for dudes, really. Yeah. So for our audience, for it to be normalized, right, is really what GirlBoss is about, because it's not about success and failure, and success meaning you made money and you were on the cover of Forbes. Yeah, it happened, but that's not it was cool. It was cool, but that's not what success means, right? It's not probably more personal, not to me, yeah. And if it's your version of success, I don't know, more power to you. I hope there's more meaning in your life, and so for me,
not my life.
No.
Just kidding.
But to have those things happen, I mean, Jezebel hacked into my wedding registry the week of my wedding, published it, and said oh my God forbid a wealthy woman has a wedding registry, and sent me a fucking ramekin from my registry the week of my wedding. And to be able to point at things like that and say, okay, there's that, but look at how much richness there is in my life. Right. My parents are healthy. I have 3 poodles. I'm a homeowner. I'm 34. I'm fine. And that's just that's the perspective we should all have when shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
those are the things that really matter.
It sounds like things were just horribly spinning out of control, but you somehow reined it in and you started something new.
I've found peace in crisis. I don't know.
Hashtag.
I hope I don't have to experience too much more of it.
Dee.
Yes.
You are a relatively new mother, or mum, as we like to say.
Mum.
In the workplace. I just came out of a working group where we were talking about the motherhood penalty. I don't know if any of you were in it, but it was sort of horrifying, and the motherhood penalty is just brutal. So I'm curious how you organize your workplace for working mothers, yourself included, and what measures would you like to see corporate leaders take?
I mean, I think that the work day, actually, and the school day as it exists right now just feels antiquated and needs to be disrupted. So the office work day is 9 to 5, and my kid goes to school from 8:20 to 2:20. There's just something wrong in that equation. And then he has the whole of the summer off. And it doesn't really make any sense to me. And when you look back at why these structures are in place, the reason that kids left school at that time was that they were needed, back in sort of Victorian times, they were needed to sort of come home and help with chores. Mothers, didn't go out to work. Over the summer, the kids were sort of helping with the farming and picking fruit. A lot has happened since then. And so, I just think that those two things need to align so that, when I get to work in the morning, I don't feel like I've already lived a lifetime by just getting my kid to school. So, I think that, until we have true flexibility for women in the workplace, we're really failing them, and we're not going to retain women if we don't do that. I just also think that there just needs to, the delineation between the workplace and the office, again, sort of feels quite, the office and home, feels a bit antiquated. I mean, we can work from home and we can do things that we do at home in the office. I just think that we need to sort of merge.
I think there's been a lot of talk about that over this day and last night. I agree. Emily, so many makeup brands kind of exclude or overlook huge swaths of the population. I would really like to hear a little bit more about your approach to inclusivity, both from a brand perspective and also from a workplace perspective.
Sure. So from a brand perspective, from a Glossier Inc. perspective, inclusivity has always been our core value. Beauty has long been this very kind of exclusionary, finger-pointing kind of industry. I mean, literally started by saying, hey, you have something there. And you going, what, do I? And they're like, yeah, it's not good. And you're like, really? And then you're like, yes, but I have something for you. So that's kind of how it started. And beauty should be something that everyone can and should participate in. I mean, the mere fact that, I get to see someone wearing a lipstick and ask them where it's from. I mean, beauty's an incredibly shared experience. And it's a great conduit for connection between people, socioeconomically, racially, cross-generationally. It's kind of this great unlock for human connection. And so what we've done as a company is built products very much in conjunction with people. And you don't need to be a certain level of expert in order to have an opinion or to be able to engage in feeling good about yourself. And so inclusivity drives, everything we do. And from a workplace perspective, in engineering, it's interesting. I'm pretty sure it's something like technology companies, female engineers in technology companies have a dropout rate that's over twice as large as other industries. And you have to think about why that is. But if you have, engineering teams that are at best, 30% female, then it's not so much even just getting them in the door, it's what happens when they're there. What are the behaviors, what is the culture of actually, being there, and how are those workplaces being set up?
How do you welcome them?
One of my favorite quotes is
what? I can't believe I'm about to do this, but I just noticed that the sign flashed at us. We kind of went right through the Q&A. Forgive me, I feel really bad about this, but I did want to end with one, and I'm so sorry for interrupting. That's awful. But at least it's a woman interrupting a woman, so maybe it makes it better. I did want to end with one fun little exercise. This is called the lightning round, and I would like each of you to respond to these questions or prompts just with one or two words, really, truly, because it says 0 seconds on the clock and we're going to be in big trouble otherwise. Okay. So let's go in order like this. I would like you to say one thing we can banish for good from the workplace. Go.
The word should.
Okay. D?
9 to 5.
Bros.
Bros. Okay. Next thing. One thing that every good workplace should have.
Puppies from time to time.
Lots of black women.
A good coffee maker.
Amazing. Okay, and last thing. One thing you wish every workplace leader would wake up and do. Emily.
Be grateful.
D.
Sponsor women.
Sophia.
Oh, man.
It's resting on me.
It feels irresponsible to say something about, like, dressing better or something.
That's okay.
That's my answer.
That's great. I love it. Thank you so much. Thank you.